and his seizures did come back. They were very mild. They were, they were less severe. And then we would just go up on his CBD and he'd have a good couple of weeks. They'd come back a little bit. We'd go up on his CBD until finally at about 3 months, his seizures completely remitted.
Suga Snake Takes.
Hello, everybody. It's awesome to have you join Suga Snake Takes as we're here today with a very special guest, someone that, as you'll find out, has played a large role and is still playing a large role in why we're all here together for UMBO, for nature, for the people. This person has changed the game when it comes to cannabis legislation. As a game changer with published research on natural ways to heal. Her journey, as you'll learn, has been one that has not been easy, and it's been a challenge. Yet she stepped up every time. We're excited to highlight her spirit, her courage, her strength, and her compassion, mostly her care as a mama bear that will not take no for an answer and loves with a huge open heart. I want to welcome to the show our good friend and awesome human, Heather Jackson. Hello, Heather. How are you doing today?
Hi. Thank you guys so much. That's quite the intro, Jake. I appreciate it. Really appreciate
we're
it.
really excited. We're excited to have you on the show. I got to say, we wouldn't be here really without you being a pioneer in this area of like just fighting the necessary entities to make change happen. And we're excited to have you here today to just explore your journey. I know we've all had personal moments with you and done a lot with you, but now it's time to like get down to the nitty gritty for the listeners. So I'll leave you there with Rashad, if you got a question for Heather to start with.
Heather, we go back a while, but just kind of give, the audience a breakdown of what got you into this space. What was your drive and how you got things going?
Yeah, thank you. First, I love this team so much. I love you guys so much. You are my brothers. I'm your biggest fan. I watched all the Suga Snake Takes from the beginning. So let's just start with what you guys are doing is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. This started with my son, Zaki, who has a really rare catastrophic early childhood epilepsy diagnosis. So when he was really young, he would have, it's hard to even imagine, but hundreds of seizures every day. And we did that for about almost a decade of seizures every day, doing everything the doctor said to do, taking all the pharmaceuticals. The only real tool in a doctor's tool bag is their prescription pad. And so we did everything he said to do. And he was a great doctor too, by the way. He just wasn't able to kind of get out of the box. And Zaki is out of the box. His condition is there's less than 100 people with his condition in the world. It's
Wow.
a genetic condition. And we also did everything the doctor didn't say to do. So we were really into alternative treatments as well. Like we saw an iridologist, an herbalist, a chiropractor. We, chelated his immunizations. I mean, we did lots of alternative treatments with him as well. We did a ketogenic diet, which is medically supervised for epilepsy. Everything. We did everything they said to do and everything they didn't say to do. And Zaki was not getting better. In fact, he transitioned to receiving hospice palliative services. So he was not in good shape. He was, he just was not in good shape. He was having early morning seizures in which he would stop breathing. Emergency medications wouldn't work. And it was actually my hospice counselor who could have lost her job, but like slid a little piece of paper over the table at one of our visits and was like, hey, there's some numbers on here. I can't recommend it, like basically don't tell on me. But, there were some phone numbers on there, and that started our journey with CBD, which everybody knows nowadays.
Yeah. So how old was Zakai when you guys first started down this path?
He was 9.5. Yep. So he was he was really young. And back then it was medical cannabis, so we had to,
Around what year was all this starting?
we started on July 19th of 2012. So I know the day very, very clearly because I can see it like, like it just happened yesterday.
Yeah.
We, Zakai's seizures were so severe. We had like a makeshift bed in our room on the floor. And so he was, because he was getting to be a big boy, so he couldn't sleep in the bed anymore. So he's on the floor. I gave him his first dose of cannabis, and Zakai would traditionally, as soon as he would fall asleep, he would have like these full body electrocution seizures. Like think of paddles to the chest, like clear,
Mm,
like really brief, very
wow.
strong, every 2 to 10 minutes.
Wow.
So as soon as he fell asleep, that didn't happen. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. I'm also very, very skeptical, but I had fallen asleep at some point in the night, and I woke up sort of like panic, startled, and he was still sound asleep. And it was like, what?
Mm,
And we actually had a couple of days like that where he didn't have any seizures. So think of a kid who's had, I physically documented over 500,000 seizures before it made me ill to continue to document them that way. And then they just stop. And his seizures did come back. They were very mild. They were, you know, um, they were less severe. And then we would just go up on his CBD, and he'd have a good couple of weeks. They'd come back a little bit. We'd go up on his CBD until finally, at about 3 months, his seizures completely remitted.
so right out the gate, when you first started taking it, you noticed something right away, or was it kind of like a loading process that had happened?
It was right away. So right away,
Wow.
we noticed there's something to this, and um, but it did take a while to kind of get to a therapeutic dose. And I treated it like an N of one, trial. Like I did all his like I'm the crazy mom that tracked everything. Like I would show up with spreadsheets to the doctor of like, look, he's having more seizures between 2 and 4 p.m., which is related to the half-life of Depakote because, like I was that mom. Like I have
Uh,
I have one patient, he has like hundreds or thousands, who knows, 1,000. I don't even know how many patients he had, but
yeah.
like I would track everything. And so like one of the really first things that happened that was so cool was he started humming. And I was like,
Mm.
what? He'd never hummed. And he got
So
on the swing and he was pumping his legs in and out. You know how you tell your kids in, out, like since they're
yeah.
like 2 years old.
Yeah.
He's like 10 years old and he hops on the swing and he starts pumping his legs. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. So you were starting to
Wow.
see the life come back into him, starting to see him starting to develop and turn a corner. Um, what was it like to start to, I wouldn't say turn away from the doctors, but I guess start taking things into your own hands as far as his health is concerned?
Yeah. You know what? This is such a important question. And it's essentially everything that I've done since that moment in time is about this answer to this question. And it's about self-empowerment when it comes to our health and taking your health into your own hands. And I've heard you guys, especially Dell, your Umbo founder, Dell Jolly
Yeah.
talks about this too. And maybe I gave him that a little bit, but like, there's nothing like, I feel like I'm floating around, like when you're dependent on somebody else for everything and it's still not working, and you have one job as a parent, one, to protect your kids, and you're not doing that very well, right? Your kid's on hospice, like you're losing. That's how I felt, and
Yeah.
so to find something that worked that, you know, didn't come from the doctor was a huge revelation to me and something that I wanted the world to know about. I wanted the world to know that you do not have to be dependent. I think doctors are great, and I think sometimes they work. But when they don't, what do we do with that? What do we do with those folks,
It, isn't this
Yeah.
more of like a human rights? Isn't it like our human right to have access to what we choose? The illegalization of these medicines by whomever, whenever that was done, it just makes no sense that that's our human right. So like you also were fighting for our human rights as you were, unbeknownst to you, probably know at the time, ready to launch into changing the legislation, changing the way people perceived a plant as a medicine. How did you garner the strength? I mean, I know your child was your motivation, Zakai, but where did that strength and courage come from to really probably face some pretty mean, evil people that did not want this to happen?
Yeah, right away, I don't even think I thought about it too deeply. I wasn't like, what do I want to do with this? I was like on a rampage. I was like, we've got to find the nearest mountaintop, and everybody needs to know about this. And so we started Realm of Caring Foundation, and it's just this beautiful community, mostly people who are living with life limiting conditions or chronic health conditions that they've been down the medical route, and they're not better and so they're looking for another solution. And so I don't even think I really thought about it too much. It just needed to get done. And there were many other families who came alongside me to make that happen. And so we started it informally in 2012. I started a call center right away. Like we had like back in the day, it was like a 1-800 grasshopper number that people could call. And you would get like random parents whose kids were like healed. You'd get random parents who could now, instead of, having to take care of their kid with seizures, they're like answering the phone and saying, okay, well, answering the questions. At that time,
Wow.
everyone had to relocate to Colorado. Like your zip code dictated whether you could help your loved one. It was insanity. And that's when the advocacy work had to begin.
Yeah, Heather, go into that a little bit because I feel like that's one of the part of the stories that um, people really don't understand because that whole cannabis rush was a rush, and a lot of things kind of got left in the dust as far as memory is concerned. But kind of paint that picture of what you're facing, being the mom that was giving your kid cannabis, having to probably move to another state, Colorado, and figure things out, and then starting the center.
Yeah, fortunately I was already in Colorado, and so we already lived here, so we didn't have to move. We gave support to families who were relocating, but it was such a small percentage of families who could do that. I mean, think about that. If you've got a really chronically ill loved one, your entire support system and your job, I mean, everything is back home. And so what happened for a lot of families is they had to split up their family. And
Oh
one
man.
one caregiver would come to Colorado, the other one would stay back home and work, and that kind of thing. And um in so many ways it was such a beautiful time because we had each other. And in other ways I just felt rage. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. Like I was so angry at that. And so what started the movement was parents just like me who had to split up their family. And so we'd find a senator and we'd tell him, "Hey, look, this is what's going on." Um at this time, it was a lot of CBD legislation, cannabidiol, which, by the way, no one could pronounce back then, and everyone was confused that it was like,
Yeah.
THC or marijuana or whatever. And so we just went state after state, knocking them down. Talking in front of, like Utah was their conservative caucus, and so we learned basically how to legislate. Like I didn't have any experience in that, so we learned to find a senator, write a bill, tell our story, get in front of the media, show up with all of our kids in wheelchairs and say, basically like we're not going away. this, you're going to do right by the kids in your state or adults or whatever. And so that movement started right away in 2013, and it was 22 states in the course of a couple of years. And we're still not done with the
Wow.
legislation. We need to do something federally. We're working on federal legislation right now because it's still a gray area. Believe it or not, over a decade later, we're still working on
Who
legislation in this area.
who along that journey, Heather, outside of the people we know, were big players for you or big supporters? Anybody that stood out that championed this cause for you that actually had the position to make a change?
Well, there was one. So my heroes, first of all, are the parents. So let's just get that straight. I'm not impressed by initials after your name. I don't care about your accolades. I don't care. I don't care about any of that stuff. I care about getting it done. I care about connection and community and getting it done. And so, I'd be remiss to not mention Paige Figgy, her daughter Charlotte, and Charlotte's Web is named after, her. And she was like, patient zero, I guess you'd say. And Zakai was the second success story. And so, her and I shoulder to shoulder, for many, many years, just getting it done. And there were many, many other families, also. And then the Stanley brothers, for sure. They created Charlotte's Web, the company, and have fought and still fight for the rights of people to take control of their own health. It's really about revolutionizing healthcare. And and I have no idea how we still in this year criminalize nature. This is asinine. It truly is.
There's a
Yeah,
segue there for how we met. Heather, that's how I met you. It was through Charlotte's Web. Have weaved that story into the podcast now. As former athletes, we joined a cause, When the Bright Lights Fade. Ryan Kingsbury, Nate Jackson, Charlie Adams, a bunch of local guys that, us poor football players were struggling post career, and no one really wanted to listen to these moms. I mean, not nobody, but it wasn't being broadcast wide enough. And, for me, I look at my career, my life, and what I did when I was a player to now these opportunities I've had, thanks to someone like you that forged forward through the all odds. We were able to go advocate and speak on this and like take interviews and do podcasts and go to these things. And so the message we were carrying was not necessarily for our well-being, but was to bring to light what you guys had been championing for your child's lives, and that nobody was really wanting to like pay attention to. So that's how we met. And it's been a blessed, friendship since then. And I thank you for the opportunity to now be sitting here again, talking about another holistic way of healing through functional mushrooms that we can get to. But that's where we met. And I think, the story you tell here is so compelling because the mother's fight for their children is one that they die trying, they die fighting. And it's great to see you guys surviving and getting through this. What we've added has been really a lot of fun and encouraging and given us cause for being relevant, really, as former players. What was the main thing behind the realm of caring? Like, you guys were able to do a lot of research. Can you speak in some of the research that you were able to, or even anecdotal evidence you were able to gather that helped this cause?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we really have three pillars at Realm of Caring. One is research. Um, and we have the largest cannabis registry in the world, which is pretty incredible when you take a look at, I mean, countries are the ones who run their cannabis registries. Health Canada, in Israel, like they're it's not like a little small nonprofit in the middle of Colorado. You know what I'm saying? So I'm really proud of that registry. And Brene Brown has a really great quote that says, "Stories are just data with a soul." And the story is everything to me. So being able to collect that in as scientifically rigorous way as you can, so you can speak on things like, a statistically significant reduction in anxiety, and a statistically significant reduction in depression, that kind of stuff. Like that's the stuff that we were tracking. Improved sleep, less sick days at work, less caregiver burden for parents. We've talked a lot about moms, but dads are in the trenches with us. I mean, it's a tag team event to get through raising these children. So we collect a lot of data, and actually, just recently, we're now the data center for. It's a huge NIH grant. In fact, by the time
Wow.
it's done, it will be the largest cannabis grant given. And we're in the middle of that with Hopkins and other really great folks. So the research has been really important. And one of the reasons is what you said, Jake. People weren't believing that this was happening. And so I was like, what do they need to believe us? Oh, data? Sure. Yeah, great. No problem. So I called Hopkins and just told him my story. And Ryan Vandry over there was like, let's do it. And so, again, not something I'd ever done before. I'm not like previously I wasn't a researcher. Now I'm published, and it's always kind of makes me giggle because everybody with their initials behind their name, and then there's, me. But yeah, so the research is a big thing. The other thing is we've given $3.75 million back to families, cash, like money, to offset the cost of
Wow.
cannabinoid therapy because it's not covered by insurance. And so if you're taking care of a loved one who's chronically ill, no matter how much money you have, you don't have money. And so we've been able to arrange really deep discounts with, product companies that we have alliances with. For a lot of years, we wrote checks. It was my favorite thing to do. So, that was one arm as well. And then we have the call center. And the call center has been in operation since 2012, informally. In 2015, we opened an office. We had a team of 9 people answering the phones. We would field 10 to 12,000 calls a month. People trying to
Wow.
figure out like how to use this, and how do I have this conversation with my doctor, and what does dosing look like, and are there drug interactions, and all that kind of stuff. And so we've been, over 4 million minutes talking on the phone since 2015, since we formalized the call center. And then of course the advocacy piece, making sure that people have access to this. So that's really what Realm of Caring's been all about for over a decade.
That's really huge because one of the biggest things, and you hit it right on the head, is the fact that it's a great treatment, but people don't know that it has that kind of power. But at the same time, don't really know what's the dosage of it, right? And the effectiveness of everything is based on the dosage. You can take something, it doesn't work, but you just didn't take the right dosage, so you wouldn't know what you really truly could have got out of it. So when you're looking at what um, this whole process and what you guys are able to do with the realm of caring, um, what are some of the stories that you've heard from the people that you've helped along the way that's been just outstanding? Because I know that you've been able to provide family with finances that they may not have to be able to get the stuff they need, but like what are some of these stories that you heard that are just like very impressive?
It sounds sometimes almost unreal. Like it's biblical shit. Like literally one lady was blind and she started seeing.
Wow.
Like that's some
Wow.
biblical stuff right there.
Yeah, yeah.
She had a autoimmune disease, and she had all but lost her vision in her right eye. And she started on actually just low dose um cannabidiol, CBD, and yeah, within a couple of months her vision started to improve, and then she could see. So
Wow.
that's one case I'm thinking of. um we serve a lot of children, and I'm thinking of one little girl who, kids with her condition generally are in wheelchairs, they're nonverbal, they generally are, eating through a feeding tube, so they're not able to even eat by mouth, and they have an early death. And this little girl, because it was the second treatment she came to and not the 18th like my son, imagine that, 17 pharmaceuticals. So because they tried one pharmaceutical and then they turned to cannabis. And this mom sends me videos of her daughter singing. She's walking,
Wow.
she's talking, she's flourishing. And that for me was what it was all about. If we can get to people sooner in their sort of the course of their disease, then, you know, then we're winning. And I'll give you one other example. And this is not one of those what some people might actually consider like a loss. We have a lot of folks with stage 4 cancer. And sometimes it will be the natural progression of their disease to pass away, to die. But what about, and this is the part I think we miss as in the medical field and in general, what about the quality of life for that individual between that diagnosis and their death? If they can eat, if they can get down to the dinner table, if grandpa can throw the football with his son that one last time, like, we cannot underestimate like the power of just that quality of life piece. And so sometimes it's not miraculous. Sometimes they die anyway. And we have a lot of grief around that, of course, but their quality of life, and that is to be celebrated, and to be a part of that's everything.
Absolutely. I mean, it's remarkable, to be honest, because you know when you said the quality of life, then that's just something that gave me chills, because that's really something you don't think about. Everybody thinks about when they're going to die, but they don't think about like how I'm going to live before I do die,
Yes,
and
yes.
that's something that gets definitely overlooked. I mean, so in the transition from, you have done amazing work with the realm of caring and the whole cannabis industries. And do you see like, so here we are in the mushroom space. What are the similarities that you see along the same lines that you may have seen in the early days of cannabis?
Yeah, it's a good question. And there's a lot of similarities. And then it's also just very, very different. So back in, I want to say it was 2016 or so. I'll get to the functional mushroom piece, but Zaki seizures returned. So after almost 4 years of being seizure free, his seizures came back. And I was just leveled. I was devastated. I guess I had just a good old fashioned breakdown. Like, that's the only way I could describe it. I had my own neurological symptoms come up, weird things like I couldn't find words. I was saying the opposite word for things. Like, I would say like I needed to cook something and I'm putting it in the fridge. I'd put my blinker on to go left and I'm getting off the highway to the right. I had loss of strength in my hands. It was just all these neurological symptoms. And so, of course, I go to the doctor and I'm hooked up to an EEG, which is what my son's had a million times, 26 leads on your head. And, and I'm sitting there going, what in the, am I doing here? Like, I know this is a psychological manifestation of Zakai's seizures coming back, right? He comes in and he says, I'm going to diagnose you um, with migraines. And here's a prescription for Topamax. And I'm like, what? Wait, what? Like, I used to call Topamax Dopamax. Like, you are just zonked on it. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't find my words. I'm pretty sure I don't need, it's a seizure med, right? I'm pretty sure I don't need a seizure med for my migraines. So anyway, I'm a researcher. Like, I have 15,000 hours under my self-taught belt of looking at research.
Wow.
I know cannabinoids. I know now psychedelics, and I curated an experience with mushrooms, with psilocybin mushrooms, for myself, with help, and my life changed. I mean, it was how I related to what had happened, to our family, what happens every day to our community, the inequities of this life, how bad people have good things, always happen for them, and how
Yeah.
the best people I know in the world like struggle so hard, and yeah, and it changed me. It changed me. And that around that time, we started Unlimited Sciences, which is, you know, Unlimited Science is another nonprofit that we started at the end of 2018. And, and from there, also then after that, getting into functional mushrooms. And so, like I use Umbo products every single day, and so does Zakai. Like there's just like to take care of your brain health, to take care of his gut health, for me also for just 2 decades of taking care of a chronically ill person is, like you need a little support.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're Unlimited Sciences has very similar mission to Realm of Caring, but it's in the space of psychedelics.
So it's like Realm of Caring, but it's for the psychedelics. You guys have the same information for the psychedelics type?
Yeah, so when we first started, one of the big things I learned with Realm of Caring in the beginning is if you don't have data to support what it is that you're doing, not everybody's going to listen to you. And who I particularly want to listen is the medical establishment. I don't think we need them per se, um, but it's really, really nice to bring everybody along.
Yeah.
And so the gathering research, essentially how I feel is we have this natural history experiment that's going on already. People are using psychedelics, right?
Hmm.
And I also believe very, very, very strongly that we have our own intrinsic compass and knowledge, and that we know that what we individually need. And so I want to gather that data. I want to know how people are using things, let's say in the wild, right? Like not in a clinical setting, like in ceremony or with their friends or by themselves or in the forest or wherever. Like I want to know what's happening there. And so we started a psilocybin registry. And again, the largest that's ever been conducted like in the world by a magnitude of many times. And so we have that we completed. We started publishing on that data, and then we use that data, similar to Realm of Caring, then to be able to answer questions. And so we also launched a call center, psychedelic info line, at Unlimited Sciences, and that just launched. It's brand new,
Nice.
and so
So
people can
cool.
reach out.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a twinkle in my eye in 2018, and so these things take time. So we've been able, and we've been taking calls and helping people, and there's a lot of great folks that are doing sort of aftercare, like if someone were to have a bad trip or they need some help with integration, and we feel like we want to come along and support those guys, but
Hmm.
also give people the education that they need to make a good decision in the first place.
Right.
Again, is there drug interactions? How do I have this conversation with my doctor? um, Dosing information. So it's not medical advice. Neither one of the organizations give any sort of medical advice. This is simply, it's not illegal to educate yourself, and so that's what we're doing. We're just helping folks get educated so we can mitigate harm, so that they don't have a bad experience, hopefully, and that we can improve outcomes, and so that they can get the healing that it is that they need.
But it's also pretty huge. I mean, from a legislation point of view, as far as like when you're able to compile the research and have the data to actually back up what the claims are, it makes it a lot easier for the decision makers at the state, at the federal level to be like, this is something that people really should have.
It's the way to speak to the legislators, that the sky is not falling. So one of the things that we were able to do when we and Dell was uh director of outreach when we decriminalized psilocybin in Colorado, um in Denver, and to be able to give them back data on what's happening then in this geographical area is great. We've been doing that all along. So that's exactly right. And then you can show legislators what's happening when people are using psychedelics and give them that information. And now, we've decriminalized all psychedelics here um, in Colorado, and they're building, healing centers and that sort of thing. So if we can come alongside again and collect the research, we want to be able to do that. And as a trusted source, because we are the people, we're not some evil maniacal, trying to make a ton of money off of like create a, like that's not us. We're just like them.
I had one quick question. It's more for my own ability to share our story, because I get, people all the time, oh, mushrooms are legal in Colorado. And I said, no, they're decriminalized. Can you just speak a little bit about the mission behind legalization, decriminalization, which route? I know we're going for decrim in limited sciences and here in Colorado, but explain like the difference so then I can have some points to share to the people that I ask me all the time. Is this umbo bar going to trip me out? And I
Yeah.
have to explain the whole difference, sort of like what we did with marijuana and CBD.
Yeah. Decriminalization essentially moves it, it down to a point where police are not going to, you're not going to get arrested for it. So like technically it's not legal. And we're talking about psychedelic mushrooms. We're not talking about functional mushrooms. Um, And so essentially you can grow them, you can give them away, you can't charge for them, and that's decriminalization. And I think that, most of us, I don't know a lot of people that wouldn't agree with the idea that nature shouldn't be criminalized. And
Human rights.
that this is a human rights issue, and that we've used these substances for thousands of years. And, it's only the last 100, less than that, that we want to criminalize these things. So there's that piece. And then what some states are doing is they're legalizing it through a medical model. And so Colorado is one of those, Oregon is one of those. And this is where people then would go, to a center to have their experience. And there'll be lots of rules and regulation around that. They'll obviously have to pay. The cost of what that is going to be is, probably unaffordable for some people, right? But there are some people, and then you also have, then there's this sort of third category of where, they are creating pharmaceuticals out of psilocybin, MDMA, and those sorts of things. And those will be available then by prescription through your doctor. And, personally, I I think you need all of those roads. I think you definitely need to decriminalize. That just needs to happen. That's a no-brainer. We shouldn't be um, disproportionately arresting people of color, because that's always who ends up in prison more often than white presenting people. So we need to decriminalize. The pharmaceutical model, even though I may not choose to access it that way at this point in my life, looking at how pharma pharmaceutical and my relationship, um, I think that there are many, many people who that's the only way they will access it. They trust their doctor, they trust the prescription pad. And I don't have any problem with that at all, especially if we hold those companies to the standard of creating, like you guys do at UMBO, some corporate social responsibility where they're giving back to indigenous communities and the medicine keepers, and where they're giving back to small nonprofits like Unlimited Sciences and Realm of Caring and others, right? To make sure that impact is being made. I think that's great. And then the medicalization model is kind of like the in-between thing, where people can access that now. And what needs to happen is we need to make sure that people can financially, you know, access
Yes.
that as well.
Yeah.
A1.
So Heather, you talked about unlimited sciences and some of the great things you guys are doing. What kind of cool studies have you guys done already with unlimited sciences? Have you guys done any yet?
Yeah, so the first one I talked about was the largest psilocybin registry that's ever been
Okay.
conducted. So that one closed.
Hmm.
Um, we also did an ayahuasca study with Middle Eastern um, women, most primarily. So of MENA descent, mostly Saudi women. And that one is under review for publication right now. So we also care very deeply about underserved populations. And, we had a friend of ours who was putting together a retreat and wanted to collect data on the people who attended the ayahuasca ceremony. And so we were really, really blessed and lucky to come along, Malik Asfir, and help him with that. We also are now um, submitting IRB approval, which is an institutional review board. So we make sure we go through an institutional review board for all of our research on a queer population for ayahuasca. We're super excited about that because there's been very little research done in the queer population that is related to psychedelics that wasn't conversion therapy. Like, okay.
Wow.
And then you guys will love this. So we're partnering with Lily's Lighthouse. They're sponsoring a study on functional mushrooms for epilepsy.
Wow.
So Sarah Kate's daughter she's almost completely seizure free using functional mushrooms.
So talk a little bit about Sarah Kate and Lily's Lighthouse and what she's been able to do. Something kind of similar to what you're able to achieve with the cannabis, the CBD, right?
Yeah. She, very similar situation as ours. Like her daughter was having intractable seizures, ton of seizures, medications weren't helping. She started using functional mushrooms and her daughter gets better. And so she did what any good old mama bear would do and started
Hmm.
a foundation and wanted to start telling people, hey, functional mushrooms might be a thing for seizures. So,
From the
that's
mountaintop,
been the
baby.
path that yeah, exactly.
So so
Mountaintop,
the,
baby.
so
Mhm.
has Lily's Lighthouse kind of teamed up with Unlimited Sciences as far as like data is concerned, as far as compiling that database for treatment? Because I mean, she has a
Yes.
dosage and everything all set up with her daughter. It has to be right.
So that's exactly what we're doing. We're interviewing families who have been having success with functional mushrooms and epilepsy and figuring out if we can connect the dots on why. So maybe it's particular types of functional mushrooms, maybe it's particular dosing, maybe it's a particular seizure type, maybe it's a particular condition. There's different epilepsy diagnoses. There's 100 different diagnoses and seizure types underneath the epilepsy category. Like, how can we connect the dots to be able to help folks? And what we really like to do is then you can sort of point the finger on where the clinical research should go. So, if we discover something from this, and hopefully we will, then we're able to, that's how, you know, when we talk about, that's how you can make pharmaceuticals then of these natural products. That happened with CBD. There's a pharmaceutical CBD product, and maybe there'll be a
Wow.
pharmaceutical functional mushroom product at some point.
Yeah.
But not that you need that, right? If you don't, then you go find a reliable source for your functional mushrooms and save your kid. So either way, it's a win.
It's crazy because I like to tell people when they ask me about functional mushrooms and just mushrooms in general, we've so barely scratched the surface on what's out there of the millions of organisms and different organisms out in the world. We've only discovered over 100, 150,000, whatever the number may be skewed. And there's only a handful of those, a small handful that we actually know and the benefits that they provide, even though we still don't know much about reishi that has 500 compounds we're finding out of different compounds that could help us. This is stepping out of the sandbox and into like real deal, real world, mature education, knowledge gain. Like you being a self-taught researcher, like gain the knowledge here. You have been a big supporter of Umbo, one of our lead investors. What have they done for you as far as like, I know you mentioned you give them to Sakai, you're now taking them. Why if someone asks you, why do you take functional mushrooms and what good are they for? What would be your answer?
You know, just as because they're adaptogens, and because I know the science behind that, like for my body to find equilibrium and balance is really important. So getting as many adaptogens in my body as I can is really important to me, and same with Sakai. Um, Specifically with umbo, after you haven't slept for a couple of decades, you really get a little crazy about your sleep. And so I use the Mica Rest product that you guys have, and my watch always is telling me like, what'd you do last night? I don't know if you guys have like the sleep app on your watch, right? And so it's always telling me, how great my sleep was when I remember to take my Mica Rest. So I definitely take that, and I take lion's mane as well, just to benefit my brain. And I have Zakai on quite a bit of lion's mane, and I think it's really helped improve his speech, particularly the give and take, having a conversation and that sort of thing. I can definitely see that improved after, using functional mushrooms with him. So I'm a big fan of functional mushrooms.
So is Zakai? How is the seizures now? Are they pretty? Are they uh, kind of gone away a little bit? Are they kind of in remission or?
No, he has some days, this is just recent actually, where he won't have seizures at all. But Zakai is back to having daily seizures that are really mild. So they're not severe at all, and he can function great. In fact, we moved out into the middle of the forest here, have a little bit of land, and he is like, it's amazing to see him. He's operating heavy equipment, like I'm like a backhoe, a skid steer. Like
Yeah,
he can drive a little Kubota around. Like
Nice.
Zakai's development is like very delayed. So, he's not going to be able to live on his own. Um, he's going to need the support of his family, and like driving he's going to be 21 in May. Like, what's more important to a young man than like drive? So like he has a beautiful life. He has friends, he has community, he works around here and gets his little paycheck, and he has a little egg business, we go deliver eggs. Like his life is so beautiful, and it's supported by a very, very loving family, and his older brothers Eric and my husband Frank, and nature. That's what supports this kid, living
yeah,
his most beautiful life.
absolutely.
Wow.
So Heather, in coming towards the end and wrapping things up, um, how do you say like how can people get more involved with the realm of caring or unlimited sciences?
Yeah, realmofcaring.org is the website for Realm of Caring. Unlimited Sciences, it's plural, unlimitedsciences.org. And if people have questions about psychedelics, they can call the psychedelic info line, and that's 888-210-3553. And they can also get all that information on, our website as well. We've built both of these organizations, whether you need more information about cannabis, hemp, and CBD. Um, and we only spoke about CBD, but we help folks with everything. There's no bad parts of the cannabis plant. You just got to use them right. So if you need help with cannabis, hemp, and CBD, get in touch with Realm of Caring. Psychedelics, functional mushrooms, you get in touch with Unlimited Sciences.
Does unlimited sciences have a website and things like that they can go to check out if
Yeah.
there's
Yep.
okay
Unlimitedsciences.org.
.org? Okay.
Yeah. And then if they want to call the psychedelic info line, it's 888-210-3553.
And Heather, your journey has been really remarkable. To sit back as a 49-year-old and the where I've been through. I now have children, so I understand, and a very loving mother, wife, and mother of those children. And like moms will do anything for their kids. They'll even forget who helped them make those kids at times completely. But I know you've been through the shit, and you always come out with this just bountiful energy of love and compassion. What are a few just tools other than living out in nature, functional mushrooms? What else do you dabble in to help maintain that mental health that keeps you going, knowing your life's not over and things could change immediately? You're still administering health to Zaki and being the glue that holds your family together. What's Mama Bear do to help just thrive, keep thriving?
Yeah, I'd say there's a few things. I take my mental health really seriously. So I do a lot. I have a really strong meditation and prayer practice. This is something that I try not to miss, for the last 3.5 years. It's a daily practice for me. And alongside that is gratitude. I hope, thank you for the compliment. And I hope that when I come in contact with folks, they can see that light from the gratitude. I'm just so thankful. I'm so thankful that my son is here. I'm so thankful I've been with my husband for 32 years. I'm so thankful for the community that, has been curated around me. I'm thankful for you two. I'm thankful for Dell. I don't do shallow relationships. I do deep relationships. And so I think that's one piece as well. Um, I love to dance. I love to beat a drum. I love to do psychedelics occasionally. Um, and nature. I will 10 times out of 10 rather be outside in nature. A seed is the most miraculous thing to me. To put a seed in the ground and for dill to come up and for it to produce 3,000 other seeds. I'm like, this is mind blowing to me. So those are a few of the things that I do for my own mental health for sure.
Absolutely. I love it. Heather, listen, I mean, from the moment I met you and we got to get some time together, and we had our Vision Quest weekend where where I got to learn and meet myself for the first time deeply. I just thank you for always just being that great person, amazing sister along the way, and just always there for myself and for whoever. And I'm very thankful to have you in my life. You have a wonderful family. Love your sons. Love your sons. And just very grateful to have you in our life.
Thanks, Rashad.
Yes, thank you, Heather, for your huge heart and love and your friendship, and always being there to keep pushing it forward for health and wellness of the human race and earth. So we're blessed to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us today on Suga Snake Takes.
Awesome. Bye, everyone. Thanks for
Bye,
listening.
everyone. No doubt. Thank everybody for joining in. This
Peace.
is Rashad Evans, and that's Jake, and that's Heather Jackson. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time on Sugar and Jake Snake Takes.